The prophet said, "Strike humanity once, they'll never stop." No one believed him part. The council chamber floated in the darkness of space, a massive structure built by civilizations older than human history. Inside, representatives from across the galaxy gathered around a circular platform. Their forms varied wildly. Some had scales, others had fur, and a few existed as pure energy contained in crystalline shells. They had come together to discuss the newest discovery in their corner of the universe: humanity. Hyunwoo stood at the center of the platform, his simple blue suit looking plain compared to the elaborate armor and robes surrounding him. He was the first human diplomat to address the Galactic Council, and he could feel thousands of eyes watching him. Some were curious, others seemed bored, and a few looked at him the way a predator might observe prey. "Honored members of the council," Hyunwoo began, his voice steady despite his racing heart. "Humanity comes before you in peace. We have just learned we are not alone in this vast universe, and we wish nothing more than to join you as equals, to share knowledge, and build a future together." A low rumble of laughter echoed through the chamber. Hyunwoo felt his face grow warm, but he continued. "We know we are young compared to your great civilizations. We know our technology is primitive by your standards, but we are quick learners and we bring our own unique perspectives and abilities to—" "Enough," a voice boomed across the chamber. A massive creature with 4 arms and red armor stepped forward. "I am Commander Draxus of the Draxian hegemony. We have studied your species, human. You are weak. Your world is divided into warring factions. You poison your own planet. You fight among yourselves over invisible lines on maps. Why should we treat such a barbaric species as equals?" Hyunwoo took a deep breath. "It's true we have conflicts. It's true we have made mistakes. But we are growing. We are changing. Given the chance, we can contribute to this council. We can—" "You can serve," Draxus interrupted. "Your planet has resources we need. Your species can provide labor. We propose that Earth become a protectorate of the hegemony. You will be protected, guided, and given purpose. In return, you will supply us with the materials we require." The word protectorate sounded pleasant, but Hyunwoo knew what it really meant. Slavery. Colonization. Everything humanity had fought to leave behind in their own history. "We respectfully decline," Hyunwoo said firmly. "Earth will not become anyone's protectorate." More laughter filled the chamber. Draxus's eyes gleamed with something that looked like amusement mixed with hunger. Before anyone else could speak, a section of the chamber grew dark. The temperature dropped. Every representative in the room turned to look at the source of the sudden cold. From the shadows emerged a figure that seemed to be made of starlight and void. This was Elder Vorath, the oldest being on the council. He rarely spoke, and when he did, galaxies had been known to change. "I have seen this pattern before," Vorath said, his voice sounding like wind through ancient caves. "Many times across many ages, a young species emerges, an older species seeks to dominate them, and catastrophe follows," Draxus scoffed. "With respect, Elder, humans are no threat. Look at them. They have one world. We have dozens. They have primitive ships. We have armadas. What possible catastrophe could they cause?" Vorath turned his attention to Draxus, and the temperature dropped even further. "I have watched civilizations rise and fall for longer than your species has existed. I have seen patterns repeat across time. I know what humans are, even if they do not yet know themselves." The entire chamber fell silent. Even the most arrogant representatives leaned forward to listen. "Do not provoke them," Vorath continued. "Do not attack them. Do not give them a reason to unite against you. Strike humanity once and they will never stop coming for you. They will never forget. They will never forgive. They will chase you across stars and through time itself. This is not a threat. This is not a prediction. This is a fact I have witnessed with species remarkably similar to them." Hyunwoo felt a chill run down his spine. He wasn't sure if Vorath was defending humanity or warning the galaxy about them. Draxus laughed, a harsh sound that echoed off the chamber walls. "The Elder's age shows. These humans are nothing. They are soft. Look at their representative standing there in his simple clothes, asking politely to join us as equals. They plea for peace because they cannot wage war." Other representatives murmured in agreement. Hyunwoo saw heads nodding, alien faces showing expressions he couldn't quite read but understood the meaning of. Dismissal. "They cry when their loved ones die," another representative added. "They write poetry about pain. They create art about suffering. These are not the traits of a species to fear. Vorath's form seemed to flicker. Those are precisely the traits you should fear most. A species that feels deeply, remembers eternally, and expresses their pain through creation. That is a species that will turn their suffering into fuel. You mistake their empathy for weakness. You mistake their desire for peace as inability to wage war. You are wrong. But his words fell on ears that refused to hear. The council was already moving on. Votes were cast. Humanity was denied full membership. Instead, they were granted observer status, a polite way of saying they were allowed to watch but not participate. Draxus approached Hyunwoo as the chamber began to empty. Your elder tries to make you seem dangerous, but we see through it. Your world has resources we need. You have 3 cycles to agree to protectorate status voluntarily. After that, we will take what we need by force. Consider it a demonstration. A lesson in how the galaxy truly works. Hyunwoo looked up at the massive alien. If you attack us, you will regret it. Draxus laughed again. Threats from a prey species? How amusing. We'll see how brave you are when our ships arrive. As Draxus walked away, Hyunwoo felt a presence beside him. Elder Vorath had materialized next to the human diplomat. I tried to warn them, Vorath said quietly. I have seen your kind before on different worlds in different forms. Species that bond deeply, that remember their dead, that turn their pain into determination. Species that, when cornered, do not surrender but instead become something else entirely, something unstoppable. Are you saying we're dangerous? Hyunwoo asked. I'm saying you are survivors, Vorath replied. And survivors, when pushed, push back harder than anyone expects. The Draxians think strength is measured in ships and weapons. They do not understand that true strength is measured in the ability to endure and continue, despite impossible odds. That is humanity's gift. And its curse. Vorath began to fade back into shadow. His final words hung in the air like a prophecy. They will strike you once, and you will never stop. I only hope the galaxy survives what comes next. Hyunwoo stood alone in the empty chamber, staring at the stars visible through the transparent walls. In 3 cycles, the Draxians would come. He needed to warn Earth. He needed to prepare his people. But deep down, in a place he didn't want to examine too closely, he wondered if Vorath was right. If humanity was pushed to the edge, what would they become? He would find out soon enough. They all would. The prophet said, "Strike humanity once, they'll never stop." No one believed him part. The colony on Meridian 4 was celebrating its 3rd anniversary when the ships appeared in the sky. Taiyang was giving a speech in the central plaza, talking about how their little settlement had grown from 50 people to 5,000. Children were playing near the fountain. Street vendors were selling food. Musicians were playing traditional songs mixed with new melodies inspired by their alien world. Then the sky turned red. Taiyang looked up and saw them. Dozens of enormous warships, their hulls covered in weapons that were already beginning to glow with power. He knew what they were instantly. Draxian vessels. The 3 cycles had passed. This was the demonstration Draxus had promised. Everyone run, Taiyang shouted, but his voice was lost in the sudden roar of the first plasma blast. The fountain where children had been playing a moment before turned into melted slag. Buildings that had taken years to construct vanished in seconds. Taiyang ran through the chaos, trying to help people reach the emergency shelters, but the attack was too fast, too overwhelming, too complete. He saw a mother shielding her child. He saw an old man trying to save his dog. He saw his neighbor, a woman who made the best dumplings in the colony, reaching for her husband before the fire consumed them both. Taiyang tried to remember every face. He felt like he owed them that much. To remember, to witness, to carry their memory forward. The attack lasted exactly 7 minutes. Then the Draxian ships moved on to the next colony. By the time the sun set on Meridian 4, nothing remained but ruins and silence. Across human space, 3 colonies died that day. Meridian 4 New Hope Station, Harmony Reach, 50,000 people gone in less than an hour. Men, women, children, elderly, scientists, farmers, teachers, artists, all of them dead because Commander Draxus wanted to make a point. Min Seo, a cargo ship captain, arrived at Meridian 4 2 hours after the attack. She was supposed to deliver supplies and pick up ore shipments. Instead, she found a graveyard. Her ship's cameras recorded everything. The melted buildings, the burned bodies, The children's playground reduced to twisted metal. She broadcasted it all back to Earth, her hands shaking so badly she could barely work the controls. "They're all gone," she whispered into the transmission. "Everyone. They didn't even give them a chance to surrender. They just killed them all." The footage reached Earth 12 hours later. Daeun sat in the military command center, watching the videos from all 3 colonies. She was a strategist, trained to think coldly and logically about warfare. But nothing had prepared her for this. She watched families die. She watched peaceful settlements burn. She watched the Draxians orbit the ruins for an hour afterward, scanning the destruction they had caused like scientists examining an experiment. The Draxian broadcast came next. Commander Draxus appeared on every screen across human space, his 4 arms spread wide in a gesture that might have been meant to look generous, but only looked threatening. "Humans of Earth," Draxus said, "we have demonstrated our power. We have shown you the cost of refusing our protection. You have 1 more cycle to accept protectorate status. If you refuse again, we will visit your homeworld next. Choose wisely. Choose survival." Daeun expected panic. She expected chaos. She expected the government to fracture and nations to turn on each other, each trying to save themselves. That's what always happened throughout human history when faced with overwhelming force. But something different occurred. Every nation on Earth held emergency sessions. Every leader made the same choice. Every military force, every corporation, every institution came together in a way that had never happened before in human history. The attack hadn't broken humanity's spirit. It had forged it into something new. Daeun received her new orders within 24 hours. She was no longer a strategist for her country's military. She was now a strategist for Earth Defense Command, a unified force that represented all of humanity. Her first briefing included representatives from every continent, every culture, every nation that had spent centuries fighting each other. "They wanted to make us afraid," Daeun told the assembled military leaders. "They wanted us to surrender. Instead, they've done something much more dangerous for them. They've given us a reason to stop fighting each other and start fighting together." The room was silent for a moment. Then an admiral from what used to be a rival nation spoke up. "What are our chances of winning?" Daeun pulled up the tactical data. "If we fight them the way they expect? 0. Their technology is centuries ahead of ours. Their fleet is 100 times larger. They have resources we can't match. So we can't win," someone said. "I didn't say that," Daeun replied. "I said we can't win if we fight the way they expect. But we're human. We don't fight fair. We adapt, we improvise. We find ways to win that nobody expects. The Draxians are used to fighting other advanced civilizations that follow the same rules they do. They've never fought a species that will do absolutely anything to survive." Over the next weeks, Daeun watched humanity transform. Factories that made cars started making weapons. Scientists who studied medicine started studying warfare. Artists created propaganda that unified rather than divided. Children in schools learned about the 50,000 who died, making sure every name was spoken aloud so they would be remembered. Taeyang survived Meridian IV. He was one of only 300 colonists who made it to the emergency bunkers before the attack hit. When rescue ships arrived, he refused to leave until they had recovered as many bodies as possible. He insisted on identifying them, on recording their names, on making sure the galaxy knew exactly who had died. In an interview that was broadcast across Earth, Taeyang sat in front of a camera, his face covered in ash and his eyes red from crying. "I knew them," he said simply. "I knew their names. I knew their stories. The little girl who wanted to be a pilot, the old man who grew the best tomatoes in the colony, the teacher who stayed late every day to help struggling students. They weren't statistics. They weren't acceptable losses. They were people. They were us. And I will spend every remaining day of my life making sure the Draxians understand what they've done, making sure they pay for every single life they took." The interview ended, but Taeyang's words echoed across Earth. They became a rallying cry, and they became a promise. They became the moment when humanity stopped asking if they could win and started planning how. Minseo's cargo ship was retrofitted with weapons. She wasn't a soldier, but she volunteered anyway. "They turned me into a witness," she told the recruiter. "Now I want to be something else. I want to be the last thing they see." Across Earth and its remaining colonies, the same transformation was happening. Civilians becoming soldiers, scientists becoming weapons designers, diplomats becoming strategists. Every human, regardless of who they had been before, was now united by a single purpose. Dayun presented the new strategy to Earth's unified command. The Draxians gave us one more cycle before they attack Earth. They think we'll spend that time begging for mercy or preparing defenses. We're going to do neither. We're going to build. We're going to train. We're going to create weapons and tactics they've never seen before. And when they come for Earth, we're going to teach them something about humanity they didn't learn from their demonstration. What's that? Someone asked. Dayun smiled, but there was no warmth in it. That we remember, that we adapt, and that once you make us your enemy, we never stop being your enemy. Not in a year, not in a decade, not ever. The cycle passed. The Draxians came. The prophet said, "Strike humanity once, they'll never stop." No one believed him. Part 4. The Draxian home system had never been threatened in its 1,000-year history. It was the heart of the hegemony, protected by rings of defense stations, patrolled by their most powerful fleets, and considered absolutely untouchable. Now human warships surrounded it like a noose slowly tightening. Admiral Sang-Woo stood on the bridge of the flagship Remembrance, watching the Draxian homeworld spin below. His fleet of 300 ships was outnumbered by the defenders, but numbers didn't matter anymore. The Draxians knew it, he knew it. The entire galaxy was watching to see what humanity would do next. "Sir, we're receiving another surrender request from the surface," his communications officer reported. "Ignore it," Sang-Woo said. "We're not here to accept surrender yet." His crew exchanged glances but said nothing. They understood. This wasn't about accepting victory. This was about making sure the Draxians understood what they had created when they attacked those colonies 3 years ago. Hyejin worked in the Psychological Warfare Division, stationed on a ship specifically designed for information control. She had been a documentary filmmaker before the war, telling stories about human culture and history. Now she used those same skills for a different purpose. Every screen on the Draxian homeworld showed the same images on a continuous loop. The children playing at the fountain on Meridian 4 moments before the attack. The families in their homes on New Hope Station. The farmers tending their crops on Harmony Reach. Then the fire. The destruction. The silence after. "They need to see what they did," Hyejin explained to her team. "Not as statistics. Not as acceptable casualties, as people. Real people who had lives and dreams and futures." The Draxian military made the decision to attack, but every Draxian citizen supported that military. They celebrated the demonstrations. They cheered for the conquest. Now they get to see exactly what they were celebrating. The broadcasts ran 24 hours a day. Every channel, every frequency. Draxian citizens couldn't escape the images. Some tried to ignore them. Others felt guilt. A few felt anger, but increasingly that anger was directed at their own leadership rather than at humanity. How had Commander Draxus managed to create such a determined enemy? Why hadn't they negotiated instead of attacked? Why were they now facing extinction when they had been promised an easy victory? Commander Draxus himself sat in the council chamber, begging for intervention. His forearms gestured desperately at the representatives, his voice cracking with stress. "You must help us," Draxus pleaded. "The humans are monsters. They surround our homeworld. They broadcast propaganda to our people. They've destroyed our economy. They've turned our allies against us. This is genocide. This is consequences," a representative interrupted. "Elder Vorath warned you. We all heard him. You chose to ignore that warning. You chose to attack a species you didn't understand. Now you face the results of your choice." Draxus turned to face the other council members, searching for support. He found none. The representatives who had laughed at Hyunwoo 3 years ago now refused to meet Draxus's eyes. Getting involved in the human-Draxian conflict meant potentially becoming humanity's next target. No one was willing to take that risk. "Where is Elder Vorath?" Draxus demanded. "He predicted this. Let him tell us how to stop them." "The Elder has not been seen since your attack on the colonies," another representative said. "Some say he is watching events unfold. Others say he is mourning for the galaxy that ignored his wisdom. But no one has been able to contact him." Hyunwoo sat in a small transport ship approaching the council station. He was no longer the nervous diplomat who had stood before them 3 years ago. He wore a military uniform now, with medals he never wanted but earned anyway. His face had harder edges. His eyes held a coldness that came from seeing too much death and causing too much more. The council gave him an emergency session. He walked to the center platform, the same spot where he had begged for peace years before. This time no one laughed. They waited in silence for him to speak. 3 years ago I stood here and asked for peace, Hyunwoo began. I told you we came in friendship. I promised we would be good partners, good neighbors, good members of this galactic community. You denied us. You laughed at us. You allowed the Draxians to threaten us. When they attacked, you did nothing. The representatives shifted uncomfortably, but no one interrupted. The Draxians killed 50,000 of our people. They destroyed 3 colonies. They promised to attack Earth itself if we didn't submit to slavery. You asked us what we would do. Here's our answer: we will never stop. Not until justice is served. Not until every single being responsible for those deaths faces consequences. Not until the galaxy understands that humanity is not prey. Draxus rose from his seat, his voice desperate. We offer terms, reparations, territory, technology, anything you want. Just call off your siege. Let us live. Hyunwoo turned to face the Draxian commander. You had your chance to let people live. You chose to kill them instead. Now you beg for mercy from the same species you called weak and soft. You laugh at our empathy, our poetry, our tears. But those tears were for our dead. And we honor our dead by never forgetting them, by never letting their deaths go unanswered. We surrender, Draxus said desperately. Completely, unconditionally, we'll disarm. We'll pay reparations. We'll put our leaders on trial. Whatever you demand. I don't believe you, Hyunwoo replied. You surrender now because you're cornered. But surrender means you accept defeat, learn your lesson, and never repeat your mistake. I don't think you've learned anything except fear. And fear fades. Memory stays. So no, we will not accept your surrender. Not yet. Shock rippled through the council chamber. In galactic warfare, surrender was always accepted. To refuse it was to invite eternal conflict. But that's exactly what humanity was willing to do. We have terms, Hyunwoo continued. Complete demilitarization of the hegemony. War crime trials for every officer involved in planning or executing the colony attacks. Reparations equal to rebuilding what you destroyed plus compensation for every life lost. Monitoring by an independent galactic force to ensure compliance for the next century. And one more thing. He paused, letting the silence build. Every Draxian child will learn about the 3 colonies. They'll learn the names of our dead. They'll learn that their civilization nearly ended because their leaders chose conquest over coexistence. This will be taught in every school, remembered in every history text, and marked annually as a day of remembrance. Your descendants will know exactly what you did and why humanity responded the way we did. You wanted to teach us fear. We're going to teach you memory. Draxus collapsed into his seat, the fight gone out of him. The terms were harsh but survivable, barely. The alternative was extinction. He knew it. Everyone in the chamber knew it. And if we refuse these terms? Draxus asked quietly. Sangwoo's voice came through on the communication channel, broadcast for the entire council to hear. Then Operation Remember begins. We have weapons positioned around every major Draxian world, not to destroy cities or kill civilians, but to target every military facility, every government building, every symbol of the hegemony's power. We'll systematically dismantle everything you've built over 1,000 years, and we'll do it slowly, methodically, building by building, system by system, until nothing remains but the memory of what happens when humanity is attacked. The threat hung in the air. Other representatives were taking notes, recording the moment when humanity proved Elder Vorath right. Some species fled when struck. Some surrendered. Humans? They came back stronger, angrier, and absolutely unwilling to stop until justice was served in full. You have 1 cycle to accept the terms, Hyunwoo said. After that, Admiral Sangwoo has full authorization to proceed with Operation Remember. Choose wisely. Choose survival. This is the same choice you gave us 3 years ago. The difference is we're actually giving you a choice. Hyunwoo left the council chamber, his footsteps echoing in the silence. Behind him, Draxus sat with his head in his hands. Knowing he had led his people to the brink of extinction by underestimating the species Elder Vorath had tried to warn them about, the galaxy had learned a new truth. Some species you could conquer. Some you could negotiate with. Some you could intimidate. But humanity? Strike them once and they would never ever stop. The prophet said, strike humanity once, they'll never stop. No one believed him. Part 3. 2 years had passed since the Draxian attack on the colonies. The galaxy expected humanity to either be destroyed or enslaved by now. Instead, something impossible was happening. Humanity was winning. Ji-Wan stood in the engineering bay of the Vengeance fleet, watching her latest creation come to life. She had been a civilian engineer before the war, designing engines for peaceful exploration ships. Now she designed weapons. The transition had been easier than she expected. Easier than it should have been, perhaps. That worried her sometimes late at night when she couldn't sleep. But then she would remember the footage from Meridian 4 and her doubts would disappear. "Will it work?" asked an admiral standing beside her. Ji-Wan nodded. "It'll work. The Draxians rely on centralized command networks. Their ships are sophisticated, but they're designed to work together as a coordinated fleet. These hunter drones are designed to do the opposite. They're small, independent, and self-replicating. Each one targets Draxian ship signatures specifically. They can't be called back once launched. They can't be negotiated with. They just hunt. Until they're destroyed," the admiral said. "Until they're destroyed," Ji-Wan agreed. "But by then, they've already built more of themselves from whatever materials they can find. Asteroids, derelict ships, space debris. They adapt to whatever resources are available. I designed them based on the principle of persistence. Not strength. Not speed. Just the absolute refusal to stop." The admiral was quiet for a moment. "That sounds like us." "It is us," Ji-Wan said. "It's humanity in machine form. The Draxians taught us what they respond to. Now we're teaching them what we're capable of." Across human space, the transformation continued. Young Mai worked in a laboratory that had once been a university. She was developing what her team called persistence technology, weapons and systems that prioritized endurance over power, shields that regenerated slowly but never fully collapsed, engines that ran forever at moderate speed instead of fast for limited time, communication networks that couldn't be blocked because they used every possible frequency simultaneously. "The Draxians fight like they're in a sprint," Young Mi explained to her research team. "They hit hard and fast, expecting quick surrender. We're going to fight like we're in a marathon. Every system we build needs to outlast theirs. We don't need to be better. We just need to still be here when they get tired." Her team worked 18-hour days. They all did. Across Earth, humans pushed themselves beyond what should have been possible. Sleep became optional. Rest became something you did only when absolutely necessary. Every person carried the memory of the 50,000 dead, and that memory fueled them through exhaustion and doubt. Jae-hyun led the special forces teams that struck at Draxian supply lines. He had been a teacher before the war, educating children about history and ethics. Now he taught the Draxians about human determination. His teams used tactics that no honorable galactic military would consider. They hid in asteroid fields for weeks waiting for the perfect ambush. They sabotaged supply depots using equipment so primitive the Draxians never saw it coming. They learned to think like guerrilla fighters, using every advantage of knowing their enemy underestimated them. "We're not trying to beat them in fair fights," Jae-hyun told his teams during a briefing. "Fair fights are what they expect. We're going to make them paranoid. We're going to make them check every shadow. We're going to make them understand that nowhere is safe. Not their supply routes, not their staging areas, not even their home system." His team struck everywhere. A Draxian fuel convoy would disappear. A communication relay would go silent. A forward base would wake up to find all their equipment sabotaged. The attacks didn't always cause massive damage, but they added up. More importantly, they created fear. The Draxians had thought humans were prey. Now they were learning that prey could bite back. Subin worked in intelligence, infiltrating Draxian networks using methods that were more art than science. She discovered something crucial. The Draxians had expected a short war. Their entire economy was built around quick conquests followed by resource extraction. A prolonged conflict was draining them in ways they hadn't anticipated. "They're running out of money," Subin reported to command. "Not ships, not weapons, but the economic foundation to support their military. Every day this war continues costs them more than they can afford. Their strategy depends on enemies surrendering quickly. We're breaking them simply by refusing to quit." The information changed Earth's strategy completely. Instead of trying to match Draxian military strength, humanity focused on endurance. Every tactic was designed to prolong the war. Every battle was fought not to win decisively, but to continue existing. It was warfare as attrition, and humans were discovering they were very good at it. G1's hunter drones were deployed across 3 sectors. Within a month, Draxian shipping losses increased by 40%. The drones worked exactly as designed, pursuing Draxian vessels with mindless determination. Draxian captains reported being chased for days by drones that refused to stop even when heavily damaged. Some drones were destroyed, but they had already built copies of themselves. The Draxian fleet was fighting an enemy that grew stronger the longer the war lasted. Young Mi's persistence technology began appearing on human ships. Battles that should have ended in human defeat instead ended in stalemates, with human vessels limping away but surviving. The Draxians would damage human ships severely, expect them to surrender, and then watch in frustration as those same ships returned to battle days later, prepared and ready to fight again. "They keep coming back," a Draxian captain reported to Draxus himself. "We destroy their ships and they rebuild them. We damage their stations and they repair them. We thought they would break. Instead, they just keep returning, every single time." Draxus watched the war reports with growing concern. The conflict was now in its 2nd year. It should have been over in months. Instead, humanity was not only surviving but actively hurting Draxian interests across multiple sectors. Worse, other galactic civilizations were watching. Some were starting to wonder if the Draxians were as invincible as they claimed. Jae-hyun's teams went deeper into Draxian territory. They hit targets that should have been impossible to reach. A munitions factory on a core world, an admiralty meeting on a supposedly secure station, a supply depot in orbit around the Draxian homeworld itself. The message was clear. Humans could reach anywhere. No one was safe. The psychological impact was enormous. Draxian soldiers started showing signs of stress. Draxian civilians began questioning if the war was worth it. Draxian leaders faced a problem they had never encountered before, an enemy that wouldn't surrender no matter what. Subin intercepted communications from Draxian command. They were arguing among themselves, blaming each other for the prolonged war. Some wanted to increase attacks on Earth itself. Others wanted to seek peace terms. A few were starting to panic, suggesting they withdraw from human space entirely before the economic damage became permanent. "They're breaking," Subin reported, "not their military. Their will, they can't understand why we won't quit. It's outside their comprehension. They keep expecting us to behave rationally, to calculate odds and surrender when the numbers don't favor us. They don't understand that we stopped calculating the moment they killed our people." The Galactic Council called an emergency session. Draxus attended, expecting them to condemn human aggression. Instead, representatives from across the galaxy asked a different question. Why was the mighty Draxian hegemony struggling against a species they had claimed was weak and primitive? Draxus had no good answer. He tried to explain human tactics, but the other representatives weren't sympathetic. They saw a bully losing a fight they had started. Some were pleased. Others were concerned. All of them were taking notes, learning a valuable lesson about what happened when you pushed certain species too far. Ji-won watched the war reports from her engineering bay. Her hunter drones were spreading across Draxian space like a plague. Young Mi's persistence technology was now standard on all human vessels. Jae-hyun's teams were striking targets deeper and deeper into Draxian territory. Subin's intelligence suggested the Draxian economy was approaching collapse. "We're winning," the admiral told Ji-won. "We are," she agreed, "but I wonder what we're becoming in the process." The admiral didn't answer. They both knew the truth. Humanity was transforming into something new, something the galaxy had never seen before, a species that when struck once would never stop striking back. Elder Vorath had tried to warn them. The Draxians hadn't listened. Now they were learning the lesson in the hardest way possible. And the lesson wasn't over yet. The prophet said, "Strike humanity once, they'll never stop." No one believed him part. 5 years after the attack on the colonies, the galaxy had changed. The Draxian hegemony was gone, broken into smaller territories monitored by galactic peacekeepers. Their military was dismantled. Their economy was paying reparations. Their children learned about the 50,000 dead in mandatory history classes, and humanity stood among the most powerful species in known space, feared and respected in equal measure. Taeyang sat in the War Crimes Tribunal, watching as Draxian officers were led into the courtroom one by one. He had waited 5 years for this moment. 5 years of carrying the memories of everyone who died on Meridian 4. 5 years of nightmares where he heard the screams and saw the fire. 5 years of wondering if justice would ever come. The lead prosecutor called him as a witness. Taeyang walked to the stand, looking at the Draxian officers who sat in the defendant's section. Some looked defiant. Others looked broken. All of them looked smaller than he remembered. The monsters who had killed his world now seemed like ordinary people who had made monstrous choices. "Tell us what you witnessed," the prosecutor said gently. Taeyang took a breath. "I was giving a speech when they arrived, talking about community, growth, hope. Then the sky turned red. I watched people die, children, elderly, friends, neighbors, people I loved. People I barely knew. They all died the same way, quickly and without mercy. I survived because I ran fast enough to reach the bunker. I carry that guilt every day. Why me? Why not them? What made me special?" He paused, gathering strength for what came next. "But I made a promise in that bunker. I promised the dead that I would remember them, that I would speak their names, that I would make sure the galaxy knew who they were, not just numbers, not statistics, people. Real people with real lives that were stolen from them because the Draxians wanted to make a point." Taeyang pulled out a small device and activated it. Holographic images filled the courtroom. Faces, thousands of faces, the dead from all 3 colonies. Each one appeared for just a moment, along with their name and a brief description of who they were. Lee Yuna, age 7, wanted to be a pilot. Park Dong-hyun, age 63, grew the best tomatoes. Kim Ji-hai, age 32, taught mathematics and stayed late every day to help struggling students. Choi Min-ho, age 45, played guitar at the community center every weekend. The names continued for over an hour. Every single person killed, every single life detailed. The Draxian officers were forced to watch, to see exactly what their demonstration had cost. Some began to weep. Others stared straight ahead, refusing to show emotion. But they all saw. They all learned. When Taeyang finished, the courtroom was silent except for quiet crying from the gallery. He looked at the Draxian officers one last time. "You wanted to teach humanity fear," Taeyang said. "Instead, you taught us something about ourselves. That when pushed to the edge, we don't break. We don't surrender. We remember. We endure. We fight back. Thank you for that lesson. I hope the galaxy learns from your mistake." The trials lasted for months. Every Draxian officer involved in the attacks was found guilty. Sentences ranged from life imprisonment to execution, depending on their role. The galaxy watched it all, learning that humanity's justice was thorough, methodical, and absolutely uncompromising. Ji-won returned to her engineering lab, but everything felt different now. She looked at the weapons she had created, the hunter drones that had terrorized Draxian space, the persistence technology that had outlasted their enemies. They were brilliant designs, effective, revolutionary, and she hated every one of them. "We won," her assistant said, finding her staring at a prototype. "Did we?" Ji-won asked. "Or did we just prove we're capable of being as ruthless as anyone else in the galaxy? They attacked us first. We defended ourselves. We did more than defend," Ji-won said quietly. "We hunted. We pursued. We created weapons specifically designed to never stop, never quit, never show mercy. These drones are still out there, you know, still hunting for Draxian signatures. We can't turn them off. We built them to be unstoppable. And now they'll keep going until every last one is destroyed." "What does that say about us?" Her assistant didn't have an answer. Neither did Ji-won. She had helped humanity survive, but the cost was becoming someone she barely recognized in the mirror. Hyunwoo stood before the Galactic Council again, this time as an equal, more than an equal. Earth now held a permanent council seat. Humanity's military was among the largest in known space. Their economy was booming from war reparations and technology sales. Other species treated them with cautious respect, always aware that humanity was a species that held grudges. "We need to discuss Earth's military expansion," a representative said carefully. "Your fleet has grown significantly. Some council members are concerned about humanity's intentions." Hyunwoo smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "You're afraid we'll do to you what the Draxians did to us. You're worried that we learned the wrong lesson from this war, that we learned might makes right, that we learned preemptive strikes are acceptable, that we learned weaker species exist to be dominated." Nervous silence filled the chamber. That was exactly what they feared. Your fear is reasonable, Hyunwoo continued. We became something different during this war. We discovered capabilities we didn't know we had. We learned that when pushed far enough, we're willing to cross lines we thought were uncrossable. We learned that our empathy, which you all mocked, can be transformed into fuel for absolutely relentless pursuit of justice, or vengeance. The line between those two isn't always clear. He paused, looking around the chamber. So yes, you should be cautious of us. You should be aware that humanity is now a major power. You should understand that we will never forget what happened to our colonies. But you should also understand something else. We didn't want this. We asked for peace. We begged for coexistence. The Draxians chose war. We simply finished what they started. If you want peaceful relations with humanity, it's simple. Don't attack us. Don't threaten us. Don't try to dominate us. Treat us with respect and we'll do the same. But cross us? Strike us? He let the threat hang unfinished. Everyone knew how it ended. Elder Vorath appeared in the council chamber for the first time in 5 years. His form flickered between solid and shadow, older somehow, as if watching humanity's transformation had aged even an immortal being. I warned you, Vorath said simply. All of you. I told you what would happen if you provoked them. I told you that some species, when struck once, never stop. You didn't believe me. Now the galaxy has a new power and you fear them. Good. Fear keeps species honest. Fear prevents the mistakes the Draxians made. What should we do? A representative asked. How do we coexist with humanity now that they've shown their true nature? Vorath turned his attention to Hyunwoo. The question isn't what humanity is. The question is what humanity chooses to become. They have proven they can fight. They have proven they can endure. They have proven they can pursue justice across years and across stars. Now they must prove they can show restraint, that they can be powerful without being tyrannical, that they remember not just their dead but the values those dead represented. Hyunwoo felt the weight of those words. Vorath was right. Humanity had won the war, but the real test was beginning now. What kind of power would they be? Would they use their strength to protect the weak? Or would they become the new bullies of the galaxy? Would they remember why they fought or only that they won? He thought of Tai Yang speaking names in the courtroom. He thought of Jiwon, haunted by the weapons she created. He thought of the 50,000 dead who never wanted humanity to become conquerors. They just wanted to live in peace. We will choose carefully, Hyunwoo told Vorath and the council. We will never forget what was done to us. But we will also never forget who we were before the war. A species that cried for the dead. A species that wrote poetry about pain. A species that valued empathy and compassion. The Draxians tried to destroy those qualities. Instead, they taught us how to defend them. That's what humanity will be. A species that protects what it loves with absolute determination, but never forgets why those things are worth protecting in the first place. Back on Earth, a memorial was unveiled. A simple stone wall with 50,000 names carved into its surface. Every person who died in the 3 colonies. Every life that was lost. Every reason humanity had fought so hard. At the bottom of the memorial, a single line was inscribed. They struck us once. We will never forget. We will never stop protecting what we love. People came to touch the names, to remember, to honor the dead. Children asked their parents who these people were, and parents told them the story. Not a story about human superiority or dominance. A story about what happens when peaceful people are pushed too far. A story about the cost of underestimating others. A story about the power of memory. Tae-yang stood at the memorial, his hand resting on a name. The little girl who wanted to be a pilot. He had kept his promise. The galaxy would never forget her. Never forget any of them. Jiwon visited the memorial too, accompanied by the hunter drones she had designed. They orbited the memorial in silent formations, still functional, still ready to hunt, but for now at peace, like humanity itself.